Thank you very much, Carolina, and congratulations again. It's not easy to take on that role, but it's definitely a very excuse me, key milestone for you and the chapter as well. I should have prepared my water first, knowing that you're transitioning, but I've known Agata over the years. So congrats again. You've done a great job in taking the baton. I've seen you and interacted with you and many of the PMI journey milestones. So the chapter is lucky to have had you really contribute over the years in various capacities, and I'm glad you're staying also on. And it's great to have us as a panel today be part of your AMM. It's a special time, and you have a lot ahead of you. The 2021 celebrations ahead, and all the hopes in terms of stepping away from virtual into one-to-one and celebrating together. This is a very special time, and looking forward to it. So today, you're most welcome. Thank you for having us. And today we're going to jump right into it very quickly so that we have enough interaction. I think it was, if I can have Luca join me, and Soriana as well when she's ready. We have really a very diverse, hopefully, views for you today that intrigue you enough and get us going on a journey together. The title hopefully is enticing enough. Many of us have been on journeys around digital transformation. PMI itself has been on that course, and hopefully you've seen the results of that both in Switzerland and also in how you interact with PMI. You heard from Agata mentioning Sunil also having participated in your events recently. PMI has gone through a lot, and what I want to do first, actually have my team voice a little bit who they are. So maybe start with Luca, since I see him right away, right next to my picture, at least at this point. Luca, tell us a little bit about yourself. What's your passion about this topic of project management, and why are you here with us today?
Well, first of all, let me thank PMI Switzerland for the invite, and let me say hello to the audience. Well, I think it's a very important theme, the future, how we are going to work. And as project manager, we need to I think we really need to change the way we are working and step in the future. So it will be quite interesting also to hear from our audience some good experience and some questioning about the new way of working.
Fantastic. Soriana, how about yourself? Why are you here with us today? And tell us maybe, I know you have something in the related to the airline industry. Is that
yes.
Is there a correlation there, or?
So my name is Sariana. I work for a company called Zeitoun, which does IT services for the air transport industry, so airlines, airports, etc. My role really here in this panel is to represent like a normal PM and what this transformation means for PM, and in particular for PMs who deliver services to paying customers, which is a role that I represent, where things are sometimes a little bit more complicated, sometimes simpler than in internal projects.
Very good. Fantastic. So we'll get on a journey, and I think just as Agata and the team mentioned, there will be times when we will have some polling. I think we're going to keep an eye also on the chat so we can look at any questions and interactions. Mm-hmm. There will be one or two opportunities to watch a couple of small videos. So for me personally, I've been around PMI such a long time, just to add my passion to being here with you today. Gosh, I've been a member since 1991, so I'm aging myself pretty quickly, and I've been around PMI in different capacities, including the global board of directors for 5 years. And recently they decided that, yes, I've been around too long, so I was awarded the PMI Fellow in the 20th, not 20th, you are 20th, and PMI's 50th anniversary back in 2019. So it's really have been a fun journey, and I think I commend any of the volunteers around the Swiss chapter as well. This is excellent. So with that, let's get into a couple of the initial highlights to set the stage. And so again, here's the players that are here today with you. So we're looking forward to maybe tying the let's call it the few loose ends around topics that are highlighted in today's session. So the future of work is human, which means there's a culture dimension we want to address today. There's definitely technology dimension. We cannot really talk about that topic without the impact of digital and digitization and so forth. And then, of course, we want to make it a full circle where we tie it to, all right, so what? I love how Soriana introduced herself. Hey, I'm representing the normal, project managers and so forth. And as you know, and you will probably agree, there's no such thing as normal, especially now that we've tested ways of working and we've experienced a lot leading to today. So hopefully this is straightforward and matches what you expect as far as agenda. It's late to change now the direction a little bit. You can with your questions and interactions, but that's what we would like to focus on. Just before we also dive into some things that Luca will take us into here in a minute, if you think about our world, and hopefully we have 120 roughly of us today joining us in this presentation, you have been familiar with this terminology, and hopefully you've also witnessed that this last year is definitely, this word steroids is a true statement. There is no way, unless you were hiding this last year somewhere completely, which we all seem to be hiding, but unless you have not really related to the changes around us, that you realize that this VUCA elements, or these VUCA elements, even though we used to have a world that anyhow every 2 hours or so, there is some updates and changes and almost like a chaos, it has actually gotten into more chaos. Now, choices are for humans either A, live with it, create resilience, adapt, and not only survive, but strive to accomplish more and stretch, or the other way around, of course, which is for us to be, stepping back and saying, I'll wait till it passes, which obviously in this day and age is one of the hardest things for us to do. So as we start, I would love maybe for us to pull this poll up. It's a good opportunity for you to confirm to us whether or not this resonates with you. So take a few seconds here while this is up and try to think about those elements. Which one of those relate most to you and affecting how you work? Would be intriguing for us to get a sense of the room before we get into our content elements today. And we'll give it a couple more seconds. And let's try to close it and see how it looks like. All right, so I don't think it's going to be surprising. It's going to be a nice segue into Luca and Sriana and I to really build on that. And definitely uncertainty is the name of the game. I mean, not a single person who's interested in PMI or project management or projects should be surprised by uncertainty. There's not a single initiative or endeavor that we do that doesn't have it. The question is, how do we deal with it? The question is, how do we prepare for it? The question is also, hopefully comes out today, do I go in a certain traditional way about it? Do I adapt? Do I inject agility? What exactly do I need to do to make me relevant in any given setting? So thank you for that. I'm making a note of the 71%, and we'll definitely tie that into our discussion as we get into it. So Luke, I'm excited to really get you started here in our session. Share with us a little bit of what we talk about as new ways of working. Everybody's intrigued by that concept.
Yeah, I'm a little bit the techie guy here, in the sense that is 20 years that I'm working in the telecommunications space industry, and here we are. I'm working in Switzerland for Sunrise, now Sunrise UPC, the new company that is starting this year. So uncertainty or complexity, volatility, these are all things that as project manager are not really, all things that we are dealing with every day, but we are a little bit scared about, So as a project manager, volatility or uncertainty, it's something that is hitting my project, is hitting my work. And in this year, we had to change our way of working. We were obliged to, And I think that at the beginning it was a big scaring, also for me, for my team, for my people. But at the end, we were able to make it. So we constantly demonstrate as human to be able to adapt and always to do the best out of the situation where we are. And technology is helping us, So what I'm seeing is that we are able to bring our work to continue to deliver project on time, on quality, even in this difficult situation. And maybe we were a little bit pessimistic, or at least I was a little bit pessimistic when everything started and we had to work from home, and we had to have these different teams working from different locations. So I was a little bit asking myself, will we be able to deliver as we were doing in the past? And at the end, the answer was yes. surprise, surprise. For example, I can give you a concrete example. Like in Sunrise, we launched the new portfolio, new offer. We had a beautiful year, even if we were working everybody in a different way. Okay, and I see some advantages also in this different way of working, in the sense that people, however, get used to it very quickly. They feel secure because to go out, of course, and to travel, unfortunately, is still a risk. So people were even more attached, I would say, to the company, since the company was protecting them. And they were, at the end, able to find a way to communicate. So I was impressed, I would say, by how we are able to adapt and really go in this new way of working that now is the new normal, no? It's like...
Was there any stars, Luca? Like, did you find any star attributes, new attributes in the style and the type of individuals as well in the organization?
I would say yes, because of course is a different way where people interact. So interaction, for sure, it's something that you need to take care, because however we are human, no, and we miss this human touch while we are doing the things. So of course, this was something that for me was very important to maintain, for example, this human interaction. How? Using the technology, for example, doing virtual coffee every day, using Mural or other tool to work together, really to feel that we were connected together. So I think this was one big lesson for me in this year.
Fantastic. Anything else on all these data full slide that you have for us that you need to highlight?
Yeah, at the end, it's not only my thought, it's also consulting company that are doing research are already seeing that this new way of working is the new normal. And people are able, however, to deliver. There was this skepticism, but at the end, we are able to deliver. We are able to continue our work. We are very flexible, and we need to be flexible. So this is demonstrating that we can work from everywhere, anywhere, and still continue to do our work. This is a video. Yeah, it's a little bit futuristic video, you know, a little bit marketing video, but it's showing what we can do now with technology and how we can match new technology with new way of working, and how this can bring us to a new level, I would say. So this is a normal day in a office, or can be premise office or client office. So you enter, you don't have a badge anymore. It's just face recognition. Of course, you don't have a desk anymore, in the sense that you use your desk only when it's needed. So you are able to reserve it or see which desks are free. And then you don't need a laptop. You don't need anything. You can just work with your phone. This I tested by myself. If you have a 5G phone, you just plug it. And we have devices so powerful today that with a Bluetooth keyboard and screen, you can really work. 5G is supporting this. So with Sunrise, we have a very good coverage in 5G already. So you can have, of course, bandwidth guarantee to work like you have the best fiber connection. We are doing this call with a 5G connection at my home. So, I mean, I think it's really true that it's supporting at the best connectivity. You can, of course, interact with other people. No, you have a virtual desktop infrastructure that can let you bring your desktop everywhere. Okay. When there will be glasses, no, you can finally do meetings in a virtual reality environment with telepresence. Here, it's still, let's say, we are still not there, but for sure with 5G, the use of the glasses will be really more easy, and it will take place step by step. Of course, you can also socialize better with your employee if you want to do some gamification together, and then speak maybe about the result of a meeting, or interact in a different way, not always thinking about the office space. No, you can interact in a game with your colleagues. Of course, with sensor and IoT, you can also keep tracking, for example, of the situation of the environment. This is very important now when we have the COVID. IoT sensor can, for example, analyze the pollution in the air, the concentration of oxygen in the air, and so on. And these are all things that are connected together to make a better office place, or to make a better, let's say, place to work. That can be the office or can be anything else. So, I mean, this was just showing you how this new future is really coming and is with us. I mean, we can really feel it, and this is something that it's not long-term future, is really already available. These all things that has been shown here in this video are really things that are available, and technology, of course, is supporting a lot on it. And in Switzerland, once again, we are at the top. Okay, we are one of the first countries where 5G has been already deployed, and you can enjoy it, and you can already, let's say, take all the advantages of having a big connectivity, a powerful connectivity everywhere.
It must be.
This is technology.
Ineffective technology you're sharing with us, Luca. Huh?
I was saying two good words about technology, you see.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so these are great points while I regain that. So I think what's really important also, yes, towards the end, maybe even you had some additional things we could have watched that talk about, still there is a collaboration component, right? So it's not like it's all digital and reliance on your mobile phone and so forth, and then you don't have the ability to interact. So when he pulled his colleague and he and her had a chance to really maybe debate further and immediately have access to the data, I think what we cannot lose is the insight pertaining to, again, the human touch, which is going to bring us closer to the topic, hopefully, of our panel here as we get into this second poll. So let's tackle this first, because I think that's going to be a nice setup also to some things we want to bring from Soriana. Give it a few more seconds. And let's close it. Let's get a sense. All right, that's very interesting. And I think hopefully, Soriana, that's going to tee things nicely as well, as you talk to us a little bit about the changing role of project managers. I might even set you up a little bit in that regard. So here it says the project manager's role is changing completely. What are the most common changes we are seeing in the nature of the project work, right? So close second, maybe the project economy. You've heard Sunil, you've heard PMI and others really emphasize that, and the fact that we're moving in that direction, very similar or slightly higher. Even the project managers are spending more time dealing with stakeholders. So in a way, maybe that second answer, the stakeholders, and the third answer are contributors also to the fact that the project manager role is changing, right? So in theory, you can almost confirm from all of this that there is definitely change ahead. So Soriana, maybe that could be a nice, if we go further, lead into some of the points we want to bring pertaining to, like when you look at it from the angle of the travel industry and what you've experienced. And you can definitely, you said you are trying to be the normal project manager, so you can put the hat on of leaders at large, right? So you can, you can really stretch it any way you like. With the only caveat is, what is really changing the most? What have you seen quite different in the interactions you have in your industry, and what makes clients and customers and travelers and others feel much more connected to service and solutions and technology as well?
Thank you, Al. So first of all, yes, I do believe that air travel is a good example of this new VUCA environment, because it is so interconnected, so technology driven, but nowadays also it needs to be safe. With COVID, we've seen that nobody wants to travel because of health issues, and the other part is obviously sustainability. Just before the COVID hit, one started talking about flygskam, which is a Swedish word, as you may know, the shame of flying, which also impacts this industry, because everybody needs to prove not only in any industry, but also in the air travel industry, that we're doing things in a sustainable way. As a bridge from what the little video was showing, most of you know already that the technologies that were illustrated in that video as part of a office environment, they are already at the airport. On the right hand side, on the top right hand side on the slide, you see the two statements that your mobile phone is your remote control for travel. It's going to be like that in the future even more. What COVID has brought is the fear of touching. So if you think airports still now, a little time ago, there were a lot of touch screens everywhere. Now nobody wants touch screens. So if you want to touch something, you will touch just your mobile phone. And then your voice, your faces your boarding pass is already the case when you cross the border in many at many airports. Where I see the change to the project manager, and this is really exacerbated in the air transport industry, is because it's so interconnected. There's so many players. So as you can see on the left hand side, for each passenger who's traveling by air, there are at least 20 organizations needed. The airlines, the travel agencies, and all that. And when you cross a border, there are up to 19 entities that are needed. And if you think that each of these counterparts, let's say stakeholders in the chain, are in a different step of the digitalization journey, it makes the job of a project manager bringing something into this hyper-connected, hyper-connected only technology-wise, but hyper-connected from the process point of view and the stakeholder point of view. And therefore, the complexity increases, because there's not just the number of stakeholders, but let's say the maturity level of the stakeholders that is very different, and the moving parts are thus multiplying. And I find that's what I've seen from last year was the hugest, the biggest learning was that indeed, maybe my company, and this is true, my company was very agile in moving to working from home. Everybody was equipped and had all the network and hardware and all requirements and could just start working. But our customers weren't. Our customers weren't. Our suppliers maybe were not. And suddenly you start discovering this network of interdependencies on this having to be connected, and it impedes the way you deliver your projects. Some examples are, for example, how do you do user acceptance testing? How do you do training? You can say, okay, well, I'll do everything online, but what if the customer can't do online? Also, if one talks about VUCA, the uncertainty or of events, you probably know, and maybe some of the companies of the participants on this call also have hit the fact that people need to work part-time because there's just not enough work in the COVID situation. Our customers, being the airports, are in that situation. So most of airport workers, whether they are in IT or the users, etc., they work part-time. So suddenly, you can't anymore schedule your work as you did before, because you have to try to go around when they are at the office or at the airport. So so many moving parts that one feels challenged by the, let's say, the traditional ways of delivering customer contracts as projects. And then you find that there are other elements that may impede you. For example, you could work in an agile way, but the way that companies have contracted with each other are not agile. So maybe it might be the contract that prevents you of working in an agile way with your customer. Or if you have an agile way of contracting and delivering to your customer, maybe the dependency on the other side is not agile. So that I see as a main challenge. The other one is that one needs to be really, really quick in adapting, because you may, well, in the airport, well, for example, we were geared up to grow all the time, and then suddenly, buff, in 2 weeks, no traffic. So then suddenly you need not only solutions, I mean technical solutions that instead of growing can be scaled down, in no time at all, but also then ways of ways of delivering project where you can disengage teams quickly and re-engage them and be more agile from that point of view.
It's so it's so interesting. So we have two sides of the equation, right? With Luca, mobility keeps taking off, and the airline industry is struggling, Siriana as well. So really, it's like the two sides of the equation completely, for sure.
Yeah, but what I need to say is that it has been also like a boost forward, because you know the airline airports especially have noticed that all this new technology is good for them. You know, and they have taken the time, and our company is taking the time to, you know, to put a lot of effort in this new technology. So the digitalization has taken a super leap forward. Because of COVID, right? But that's the products that we sell. But what I'm saying is that the companies with their internal IT, they're not all at that level, you know.
Yeah.
And
no,
that's the complexity. Yeah.
Absolutely, and I'm not, I don't want to play around the screen again, so I don't lose my mute and unmute. But I can see already some of the chat comments that are popping up, talking about AI and talking about the impact of, digital literacy and those kinds of things that are really important for us to tackle. And at some point, maybe after our first reflection, if there is one question or so that's really critical for us to address now, we can. But then we'll get a chance, hopefully, at the end too. So what you said is a nice segue into this element, for sure. We're talking about cultures here. This is a saying by probably Peter Drucker, I think, is where it is attributed to. Culture eats strategy for breakfast. The reality is there's something about the culture, even in the digital world, right? So, for example, as you follow blogs and you follow things pertaining to that topic, I wrote myself a note is, culture change now is your new source of relevance, right? So really, if you don't work on the culture change, your relevance, no matter what digital solutions you're putting into the mix, is not going to be there, because ultimately it's about adoption. Ultimately, it's about what it affects and the way by which we work. So maybe just to recap that first part of our panel today, Luca, do you see that when we have really emphasized the changing, applications of technology, and of course, Siriana hit that also in terms of talking about the travel industry and the more touchless kind of aspects as well. But generally speaking, have you seen that culture has been given enough attention? Are we organizationally, at least the ones you've experienced and the teams you've experienced, taking some right steps in that regard?
Well, for sure, in a world that is changing so fast, with a technology that is changing so fast, this is putting pressure on some organizations. So, in my view, I'm working in a telecommunication industry that is quite dynamic. So I saw this switch in the culture of the people, and I saw it very fast. But because I think that we are in a very dynamic world already, where due to the market pressure, we need really to change every day, and also our way of working is changing every day. I saw more difficulties in other industry, no, where digitalization is still a little bit behind, and where, of course, people culture has to change more fast.
Yeah. I think it's nice segue also, Siriana. So when I talk about agility, maybe I'll mention a comment before also, because you mentioned that in your comment so far too. What I found important in agility, no matter whether you look at what PMI has done and the elements around what's called discipline agile and some of the views around that pertaining to context, I think this point about context is very important no matter what. Mm-hmm. So whether you are talking about it from the perspective of what am I going to choose as a way of working, building on what Luca says, or what is the right format for my teams to interact and to work? How much really do I need to move towards the traditional world of projects versus the extreme agile world, and what is that fine spot? I think if the dialogue doesn't start from the readiness point of view, and from the culture readiness, and from the team's ability to truly ask some of the tough questions, why are we doing what we're doing? Are we just following somebody else? Like, for example, even this notion of digital transformation, right? Everybody talks about it, but just like any other buzzwords, it's going to disappear, right? So what we need to do probably is shift this to value, right? I mean, what is the value? Just like you talked nicely about your customers. Go ahead, Siriana.
Yeah, if I may, I'd like to react to the second question that you have on this slide. Is agility one of those critical measures for our business future excellence? And I think yes, but not I don't see agility as a methodology to deliver software. I see it as a mindset, as many say. And from my point of view, the most important aspect in agility now in this VUCA world is to be adaptive, because we will see not only different cultures but different speeds, and as different technologies and things like that. And the adaptability also brings a notion of tolerance. Not everybody will go as fast as we do, and we can't always choose who we deal business with. We have to sell something also to those who are a little bit slower. Everybody can't be an early adapter. And if one thinks about this ramification of interdependencies all the way to the end, what I find really interesting is to see whether we can get agility and this adaptability into governments, because somewhere there's always a government behind, like in 5G, like Luca was talking about 5G. Does the government authorize 5G? How fast can we get the COVID vaccines out? It depends on when the government authorizes them. How the fastest companies might not have the best vaccines. I don't know. I'm not from that business, but I think the agility means adaptivity, and adaptability means, as you say, it's very human.
No, 100%, 100%. And part of those attributes is also how resilient are we as human, right? So, and again, not just to throw additional words. The last thing we want to do is we confuse ourselves. I saw comments already popping up about being nimble and being simple and those kinds of things. I think that's really key, because the more we make things complex, the higher the likelihood also we're going to leave some stakeholders out, right? So we could be on a fast bullet train trying to transform and operate differently, but it doesn't matter if you don't have the right people on the bus or on the train, or they're not even on the train altogether, right? So it's really unique. Luke, any other thoughts on this one before we touch on?
Well, I totally agree with Sarianna. At the end, there is, and with you, there are a lot of buzzwords, no, that will disappear. What is remaining is really the value. And I think that one of the most important is really the fact that, in my view, people can adapt and can really change. And this adaptation that we have is crucial, no? Agile, for me, it's not an IT stuff, no? It's the fact that I'm able to adapt myself and work in an environment that is constantly changing. And this is the value that I would like that stay. Not the fact that we do a digital transformation maybe to copy others, or just because agile is a buzzword and we need to do it. I would like that this value, we give it to our organization, to our people, and these people live this value in their day-to-day work.
I love that, because at the end of the day, I mean, that's by itself is a culture change. Just to change, just like you said, agile from being an IT/software development kind of a tool, right? It's to really a way of thinking, a way of operating. It's a mindset. It's an interaction style. Loads of things basically we can inject in our organization. So it sounds like we are three agreeing that it's more about the business and organizational agility rather than the pure principles of it.
Yeah, it's more also about the people at the end.
Yeah, absolutely. What is our business? It's a combination of us. All right, super. So this should be interesting, because when I try to reflect on who we are, right? I mean, look at us, right? So, Sarianna, are you an example of a culture mix or a global citizen of any kind?
Well, I'm from Finland originally. My husband is French. I've lived a little bit all over the place, and here I'm landed in Switzerland since quite a long time, and I've delivered projects almost all over the world. So.
Okay. And Luca, you have some, I guess so. Luca, you have similar patterns, huh?
Yeah, more or less similar experience. I worked, from Saudi Arabia to Eastern Europe to USA. So, and it's for me, it's fantastic, because every culture is interesting. I find this every time an enrichment, no? To meet people and to understand their culture, it's always a big enrichment. I miss it a little bit now.
And you're not Italian, right? You're not Italian.
I'm Italian, so you see, I like to express myself, and I miss it a little bit because 6 years in Switzerland, I miss a little bit some international assignment.
Okay.
What I find, sorry,
go ahead, Fanny,
what I find interesting with the culture mix is that when you have a very varied culture mix, there's not one culture that sort of prevails, comes through as a strong one. So and my company is like that. The Switzerland PMI chapter is absolutely like that. And when you then bump into a culture that's very well, monolithic is maybe a negative word, but let's say homogeneous, you sort of get surprised that, wow, is this what British are like? Or I don't know, Omanis or Turkish or whatever, because suddenly you didn't realize, because the individuals, when you see them in a mixed environment, it's more their, let's say, personal culture that comes through, and not necessarily the cultural traits, that would be if you would have all of the people from the same national culture, let's say, together, that they sort of shine through more.
No, absolutely. And I join you both. I mean, I grew up in Egypt, operated my entire life globally, lived in the US forever, married to German, etc. So it's so I find what Erin Meyer has done here is quite fascinating. If you think about it, she's done a lot of work over the years, and she spoke probably at some of the global events for PMI and so on. We tried to pull her because of the importance of that to projects. And here there are a couple of the dimensions she really addresses that shows the diverse aspects you mentioned, also Sariana now. But we want to focus on, from a digital standpoint, on one only, which is trust, right? So the assumption now is that trust as a currency is one of the most important enablers for digital success, whether I'm incorporating IoT or AI, or I'm utilizing the latest and greatest in terms of data analytics to help me make faster and better decisions. We get hit at the end with the trust component, and we start suddenly looking at, oh my God, basically I have now, gaps in how people relate to this and trust each other, and the way by which they establish trust. Have you encountered that? I mean, obviously, if you look at, well, you probably fit, you see where you fit, Sariana, right? You're a smacker into the very much left-hand side. Switzerland is not showing on the list, but I probably would be thinking it's pretty close there too. And then Luca, you mentioned Saudi Arabia, look where it stands, right? So
relationship is everything, It's fantastic.
So couple that with technology, couple that with digital, couple that with the adaptability we were talking about and agility. Do you think that we need to invest in trust differently? I mean, you had guys like Patrick Lencioni and have their 5-level models and building foundation of trust, and others over the year really drive us and support us in teams. But is there a different take on how we invest in trust building and a better sensing and realization of also the mixes we have in our future projects? Any maybe quick thoughts on this before we transition from it?
Well, if I may, me being on the left-hand side of the slide, if I want to be really provocative, I would say that I don't trust trust. I think it's a very suspicious term, because if I think of the word trust, the one thing that comes to my mind is, in God we trust, on the US dollar. Do I trust money? No. Do I think that one should trust God? I think that history has shown that there are so many gods who don't agree with each other that it's a bit dangerous one to trust. Then there's this Middle Eastern buddy trust. If I'm not the godfather or the son or the girlfriend of somebody, nobody trusts me. So can I trust that in an international sort of business? I don't think so. I think it's a wrong sort of trust. Yeah. Then one could, can one trust data? And actually one can't trust data either. I learned that for example, AI is prone to bias. So you can't trust data, and that's why I would rather, instead of talking about trust, talk about integrity and ethical behavior, because I think if one talks about integrity and ethical behavior, there is no scale between countries. Things that are ethical or behaving in with integrity is the same. I think or at least the scale would be much more scrunched. Yeah. And that's why I think, how do you build trust, in my experience, especially in new environments, in environments that are not your culture, where you're not the godfather or the son or daughter of somebody, is through track record that is built on integrity and ethical behavior. And that's, in my view, especially in the digital world, is the only way you can do it. You can't go for lunch, you can't buy a drink, etc. So you really have to be impeccable from those points of views.
Good point. I'm glad you mentioned bias. So Luca, it sounded a little pessimistic though on Sariana's side. Can you be a bit more optimistic? Is there a chance, is there a room for, between the data bias and the human bias and the technologist bias and the fact that, what is being almost announced as the driver for how we look at trust is sometimes nothing to do with what's below the surface, huh?
Yeah. I would say trust. It's a complex topic, especially in these days. It's not an easy one, because I think that we are having a lot of interaction, but in a different way from the past, and it's really difficult to build the trust. But at the end, as people and human being, we need to be open, no? And I think trust is a big value. We need to trust also the others, even if we are working in a very challenging environment, even if we are working, you see, me and Al, we never met physically, no? We just met through Zoom, but we find our way of trusting each other and building this slide together. So for sure, trust, it's a complex topic. Technology can help, but also can be a little bit disruptive. So we need to pay a little bit attention in this world, how we can build this value, especially in our organization. I think this value is one of the most important, because in an organization when there is trust among the people and trust also outside with your supplier, with your client, I mean, these are the real organizations that are winning, in the market, are the successful one.
Right,
but it's
right.
not it's not an easy, I never did a training that is explaining how to build trust. It's really difficult to build.
Luca, I don't know if you heard me say that before. I refer to this as the smell of the place, literally. Like when you walk into teams, you can tell, is there trust in that environment? Is there engagement? Are they asking the tough questions? Are they able to bring it up, etc.? And again, of course, we see Aaron, and Aaron's work is not perfect. I mean, just an example of someone really researching enough across enough of countries to present data for us. But at the end of the day, it goes back to the culture again. It goes back to some of the points you just raised as well. So, it's really, I mean, we tackled this a lot, I think, already in the backdrop. Is there anything else in this one? I know we're not providing solutions per se, right? I mean, especially this one would be great to interact with the audience and see some of the reflections and questions on the topic of trust as a currency and so forth. But here, we're trying to bring it back to the digital side. And I think Serena teed that up nicely with the biases that can happen, because ultimately, who drives digital? It's us, right? Who enables certain patterns or certain things to be researched and so forth. And she also scared us more because she talked about the emotional side, that EQ now is being built into a lot of the advances technology-wise, which at the end of the day, what's left to the humans, right? So where do we play, basically, and how this, maybe his final thoughts on us on the trust currency, can we show back to the discussion of value? I can start by saying it's really about empathy, right? So I'm so amazed by the leaders and CEOs of big organizations around the world who are very much in the technology space and digital innovations and so on. And that's what comes in every dialogue they have. How can we empathize better as organizations, as teams and individuals? So maybe we'll still win that game when it comes to the competition with our digital counterparts. But what else can we do to final thoughts on this trust component in relation to our success in a fully digital world? Any other thoughts before we transition from it? What do you think?
Well, empathy is the key. And you see, I mean, successful company really take care of this value, and the leaders are really able to transmit their vision through their empathy as well. So there is a meaning behind why we are doing some digital transformation. What is behind? They're able to explain it, and if you don't understand it, that you will be always a barrier, no? You will perceive this barrier. So for me, empathy, it's a key word.
Oh, it's a great one, and I'm glad you mentioned also the top leaders, because to tie this into some of the changes in the way of working, leaders need to rethink how they create all of this, right? I mean, if there's still leaders out there, I love the expression and the focus that's coming back on the servant leadership, right? So it's from the 70s and it's been around forever, and yet it's as if it's we suddenly realize, oh, some of the best leaders are the ones who are wearing a different hat. Cold being humble, cold being I don't know all the answers, cold that my role is different. So maybe that's how we build trust differently, is to revisit. Serena, final thoughts on this?
Yeah, I do tend to agree that, I see across different companies when you don't now have like management trainings and things like that, it's no longer so much the command and control. It's really coach and support, and it comes again to the what I said, that agility means adaptability and accepting differences, because actually with differences you have more variety, and this variety, the world is so complex and has so many moving parts that your company also needs to have all those moving parts. If you want to have a monolithic company, you're not going to be successful in the non-monolithic world.
So
Very
as a
true.
project manager, we will really need to change. No.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
This is at the end, shape a new culture based on trust, based on empathy, and with a different also style of controlling and leading the things. So I mean, this is for me the biggest takeover. We need to change our way. No.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think one thing that came very clear also is the whole diversity component. I think I heard that between the lines heavily, especially when Serena was talking about this, and you and I were reflecting on that too, Luca. So unless I have the ability to listen to complete different perspectives, I think that's fundamental, and that's what some of the work I've done, and we presented pieces of this last year also in some of PMI's event, is this whole equation around sensing differently, right? So this is what I call the sight equation. So back to the empathy, this whole sensing is along that. Intentionality is another dimension that I've seen in the interviews and working with some executives as well. How intentional are they in driving change, and how they connect to the dots in their teams and so forth. And then thinking for a change again, right? This whole thoughtfulness. We lost sense in the fact that, hey, if I'm going to be extremely dependent on digital technologies and so forth, I'll just go on cruise control. You can't, right? So it really actually requires of you taking a bit more of a thoughtful approach. And eventually what we lose, and that's why I mentioned the smell of the place, what we could lose with technology is the energy, right? And if we do that, then we're sacrificing a lot. So we almost like go back to square one when it comes to the trust component. So maybe let's get the sense of the room, if this makes sense to our attendees. What do you think about this? Let's get a quick sense of the room, give it a few more seconds here. Out of those elements, which one you rate as highest in driving, again, back to the value point, which ultimately should be that mix between human and technology? Give it some more seconds. And let's close it. All right, super. So thoughtfulness is coming at the top of the list. No surprise. Again, we are not doing it. We're not thinking anymore. We're just, which comes like a robotic aspect of technology sometimes, but close second there, intentionality. Let's keep that in the back of our minds. So let's close that. Great reaction from the team. Maybe run quickly this video here so we can be kind of timely and get a chance more to interact on questions. This one is pertaining to Mr. Senek, a quick one. Let's see if we can run that.
If you agree with somebody, don't nod yes. If you disagree with somebody, don't nod no. You will be told your whole life that you need to learn to listen. I would say that you need to learn to be the last to speak. I see it in boardrooms every day of the week. Even people who consider themselves good leaders, who may actually be decent leaders, will walk into a room and say, here's the problem, here's what I think, but I'm interested in your opinion, let's go around the room. It's too late. The skill to hold your opinions to yourself until everyone has spoken does two things. One, it gives everybody else the feeling that they have been heard. It gives everyone else the ability to feel that they have contributed. And two, you get the benefit of hearing what everybody else has to think before you render your opinion. The skill is really to keep your opinions to yourself. Simply sit there, take it all in, and the only thing you're allowed to do is ask questions so that you can understand what they mean and why they have the opinion that they have. You must understand from where they are speaking, why they have the opinion they have, not just what they are saying. And at the end, you will get your turn. It sounds easy, it's not. Practice being the last to speak.
So again, hopefully this is a nice recap to what we just talked about in terms of a couple of things. One, the empathy component. Second, to build trust, how to be much more inclusive. this whole element of diversity, creating a safety in the room, as that enables me to Soriana's point, sorry, the agility component as well that can come from, hey, if I'm expressing my views and I'm contributing on a regular basis, that allows me as a team member to have that capability to innovate and create as well. So this is just a tee up. We're not going to talk about this, but just the whole idea, innovation, that's good. We can tackle that. Which allows us to also, catch up and go to the fun part, which is more really to interact around questions and so forth. So we'll leave this aside, but the whole notion and maybe a connection to Simon and the culture aspects and the empathy we talked about, innovation and creativity is such a great, connection or connecting point to the impact of digital and how teams work. So we're not going to read this busy slide or look at any of those elements to it, but for now, and maybe the chapter in Switzerland will dedicate some time in future events also to get into this. But for now, let's again, as we look at that intersection between the human and the technology, the real use as we see as project managers, and that affects the way by which we work, is what can we offload almost to the digital so that we free up the time to do some of the things that the last poll also showed us, to think again for a change, to look more for patterns, to invest more time to figure out how that trust is being built, how some of the elements pertaining to the team's connectedness take place. So we have one more. So again, this is the last, I promise, one more poll that leads us to making some few connecting remarks at the end. So let's open it and let's get a sense about this safety aspect that also ties directly to the topic of innovation. I'm going to give it a couple more seconds. And let's close that. All right, so we are seeing again, to innovate while developing the right safe culture, right? Which attribute would you rate as the highest in driving consistent value for innovation? So no surprise at all. And we have been, even prior to COVID, prior to the VUCA on steroid and the many changes we've had in the workplace, we've always realized that to have the right valuable space into the future of work and in the role we play as project managers and leaders in our organizations in any capacity, collaboration is going to be a big enabler there. And of course, the second one, no surprise, creating the time to think again, tying to some of the elements of doing that. So maybe a quick comment on that, Soriana. Are you able to think anymore? Are you able to be in a position where you truly in your role and, and some of the leaders you work with, you're seeing good patterns of that?
I think we must think much more than we did before, because you need to re-innovate and rethink how to do things all the time, again and again, every day almost. Just one example, of maybe foreseeable unprecedented events. Next week is going to be a very cold week, right? So in Europe, they say that it's going to be the winter week of the last 100 years. It impacts every airport. Some countries are forcing snow. They don't have snow normally. What does that mean? They're doing their emergency procedures. All projects need to stop, etc. So we need to think every day, of how to do things differently.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So I think to tie that nicely for us, so we can proceed more to addressing some of those points with our participants today. I mean, if you look at the future, and again, 2030 doesn't seem like it's far out there from a future standpoint. We used to think 2020 or 2000 used to be far out. So it depends on which generation and the participants are from. But if you think about this whole notion of transparency, if we think about if that is going to be a dominant part for how we work into the future, what does it take to build that? Remember, you mentioned agility, and we all three of us agreed on the fact that agility at the individual level and the organization is going to be pretty much a trademark there. But for that to work well, we've always realized that finding a level of autonomy, or what we could refer to as aligned autonomy. I mean, you remember many of us have witnessed also Spotify methods and have seen examples of how Spotify tackled their engineering work and so forth. And whether we just look now at Simon, or if you look at the work of Brene Brown and some of these people around also what does it take to build the empathy and many pieces we've dealt with. How do we embed that? What have you seen truly work to embed transparency so that it becomes part of how we become creative and innovative? Luca, maybe you first start with that. Yeah.
In my view, at the end, I mean, we are closing, this discussion, and I think that at the end is the empowering the people, the secret to really build innovation, to build an organization that is really looking to the future, an organization where there are no barriers. And I really see, I mean, this happening. When I started to work, everything was a silo. And today, I think that maybe in 2030, we are not going to talk about anymore about organization in the traditional way. Maybe there will be no org chart anymore, or maybe this is too much futuristic, but empowering people, it's always a matter also here of culture, as we discussed, to give them the freedom to play, to give them the freedom to play their role as they want. So this, for me, will be the secret to build this kind of skills,
I love that. Dismantle all those silos. Siriana, help me out. We cannot talk about the topic today without the role of the youth as well, right? So do you believe that is, an angular dimension we have to think about here when we look into 2030 and we look into a different way of working?
Yeah, I've been thinking, whether it's possible to skip steps in the maturity ladder, for example, in project management. If somebody comes, very fresh to the project management profession, can you just tell them to just think wildly and do things, in an agile way and things like that? And maybe I'm old-fashioned, but I do still think that, it's good to start with, some good old process, do a little waterfall project here and there. And once you know the Lego bricks that you can play with, then you can start building more complex things. So I actually believe that, maybe one can go faster, but one shouldn't skip all the steps. It would be good still, in my view, to start with a waterfall project, because it's safe, and then little by little go to these more complex things. Obviously, then if you think of younger people than us, they are already, digital natives, etc., etc. So some things come maybe easier for them, and they will be innovative faster in a certain way. But I still think that you have to play Duplos first before you go to Legos.
I like that. I like that. Yeah, I want us to briefly here. We're trying to stay Swiss as much as we can. I don't want to have the Italian in Luca or the Egyptian in me affect the timeliness today. And hopefully, we at least open the key points so far on the topic. Maybe as we start taking a question here shortly from the participants, and then transition into more of an interactive side of our session. I think these are good points from a summary standpoint, at least, that capture most of what we said. I love maybe to emphasize that we've also seen that in many of the chats coming about simplicity and how nimble. Luca talked about dismantling some of the levels and so forth. I think maybe the one thing we didn't talk enough about is two quick things on this one. The first one, this whole zooming in and out, right? So this whole notion that part of the adaptability, maybe that Siriana highlighted, is, how can we truly be good at this, right? So we've always known that as project manager, we need to be system view kind of people and able to go into detail. And then finally, maybe that comes in the questions as well, the notion about storytelling. I think maybe we didn't touch on that enough, and maybe we see some questions that lead into that as well. So Carolina, very timely, if you can get us maybe to look at a question or so first, and then you can guide us through the last interactive stage as well.
Yes, thank you very much. Maybe we have one question already asked by the participants. We can maybe ask this answer. I will ask you to answer to this one question, and then we will just quickly move to the final stage of the PMI announcement, and then we will open this half an hour session where everyone can freely ask the board and you, our guests, questions. I can see there is so much movement in the chat and discussion and interaction that I believe there will be lots of questions. But let me start with the question that we have from Olivier. Actually, there is 3 questions in one.
He's a complex guy. I know, Olivia.
Yeah, that will be a complex question from complex guy. So in terms of evolution of ways of working and the integration of technology, by the way, this question is, you can see in the panel exactly like you can see now here. There is a Q&A icon, so for everyone also you can read in the answered section. So one more time, in terms of evolution of ways of working and integration of technology into every aspect of our working environment, how do you perceive the emergencies of trends such as citizen development? And I think Oliver also asked this because citizen development is a big topic now in PMI. We also have a few sessions around this topic. Yeah. So will we see citizen development AI? And is the citizen development the ultimate technological agility?
So maybe I'll tee the answer up, and feel free, Luca or Serena, to jump in. I think one thing also that you've seen in PMI, hopefully very much over, and I cannot speak obviously of PMI. I'm not Neil here today or representing the board in any capacity. So just is basically on a very interactive, volunteer, at least in many capacities with PMI. I think citizen developer is going to definitely be having, or at least having the potential to be one of those enablers for many of the things that, I think you raised, especially in the chat, around simplicity, around enabling and empowering other than usual type of individuals to put, quick apps in our hand and to, quick solutions in, in our plate, etc. And it's going to create different pressures also on the, on that kind of development industry that also at the end of the day means newer ways of working and newer focus, right? So I think it's one of the right focus. I think PMI, of course, is tackling so many different initiatives to confirm again that the organization is transforming, the organization is listening. I don't know how long many of us have been around PMI, but the PMI has shifted its strategy completely since 2016 to be much more individual driven rather than organization driven. So when you are focusing on the individual, it helps the organization and so forth. And so citizen development is really an example of that, putting things in our hands in a way. Luca, are you starting to get some insights into citizen development or development kind of initiatives there as well?
Well, this is a quite new topic, no? That, however, is coming out, I think, with a lot of interest now, no? Because at the end, many companies are trying to transform themselves in a digital way, but at the end, this digital transformation are very at risk because there is also a lack of people that and the skills and capability that can support. So this can be a new way, let's say, for me to kick a digital transformation that is successful. But you need to be very, for me, really very advanced. So I will be a little bit cautious, and I don't have enough experience, I think, to talk about a success story on this.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You'll probably need to hear more from Olivier already on his views on that and others as well. I think the concept is very good. I think it can actually lead to anything that has to do with empowerment. All three of us talked about autonomy. All three of us talked about the importance of agility. All three of us talked about also the need to not stick to a classical way of working. So if the citizen developer is a way by which, via the guide that now has been developed, via some of the initial rollouts in classes and focus on that to transfer ownership for that kind of work in the hands of teams at large and individuals, I think would be great. So Rihanna, I'm going to bring it back to Carolina if she's, unless you want to add one quick thing. You good? Okay.
No, I'm fine. Thanks.
Excellent. Carolina, it's to you.
Thank you. All right, thank you. So I'll very quickly go now through some announcements from the chapter, and then we will move to the Q&A session. But first of all, thank you so much, Luca, Serena. Thank you so much for this session. It was, as you could see in the chat, really moving, really interesting, and hope to see you again in one of our events. So maybe we can talk more on that topic. Thank you again.
Thank you very much, and looking forward to, again, honored to be here today.
But also I would like to thank, on the next slide, I would like to thank the team, the event team who organized this event. So Stefan, Isato, Pia, Julia, really great job. We had lots of meetings about this. I know how hard you were working, so great job, amazing event, and we hope to see more virtual events now. And on the next slide, we can move. I will just give a short announcement. The few events that are coming, and I would like to now invite you to join us, is the Fundamentals of PMP, an open space forum on the 18th of February. All the events are obviously online. Discipline Agile on the 2nd of March. And then the PMI Coffee Talk for everyone. It's a coffee with the board members on the 5th of March at 8:30. That's always on Friday, once a month on Friday. And PM Masterclass, the Building Your Personal Brand, 17th and 24th of April. All these events are virtual. You can find them on our website, and you can find their link to register and to attend. Thank you again, and we as a board, we're going back to work. So we have lots of things to achieve this year, and hope to see you soon on our next event on the 18th of February.